5:39 is your time. We are going to go live now to Lindsay Boach.
Yeah, she joins us out at Four Winds Farm. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, we are in the middle of this beautiful garden. I could never even come close to growing anything that looks anything like this, but it takes a lot of hard work, especially in the drought that we've been having. And it's no surprise, like Chad said, we are in a drought. And National Weather Service actually said that we would need about 15 inches of rain at this point to get us back to normal, where we should be. So a lot of rain is needed. We had a little bit yesterday, but nowhere near enough. So that's why we've turned to Deborah Lee. And how did you get your garden to look this great?
Well, we've been working on it since March, and we've been watering steadily all the time. And I did want to talk a little bit about watering, because a lot of people are watering once a day. And some people are doing that because they have a well and they have to monitor it, but really it's better to soak it about once a week. This is always what's recommended. We've been recommending that from U of I Extension for many, many years. And when you do that, so like I have been watering some of this with a little sprinkler. Some of it I have drip irrigation hoses, and the drip hoses are better because you're not wasting any water. So the drip hoses, if you leave them on for an hour or maybe 2 hours, and then the sprinkler a couple of hours, and so I'll move that around. And I've been trying to be as conservative as possible on this. I have some containers, and I need to water them probably once a day. With our containers, especially hanging baskets, they do need to have a whole lot of water.
Now, what's a drip irrigation hose?
It's a hose. You can get several kind of them. It looks pretty much the same as a regular hose, but it's more porous. And so it's just like a lot of little water chutes coming out throughout the hose. So I run that around the periphery of the garden. It's a bit harder to do when you have raised beds. Now what I want to do is get some underground watering, which is sort of the same way. So the water will just seep out gradually. And it waters the roots, and that's really what you need.
Now, aside from just plants in your garden, trees and shrubs need to be watered as well.
That's a good question, Lindsay. Yes, many people are not watering their trees and shrubs. I have so many out here, it's hard to keep up with it, and I haven't done much. But the last 5 or 6 years have been really hard on trees because we've had too much water, not enough water, and now a really serious drought. You need to water them out at the drip line, and that means more where the edges of the leaves are, the outside part of the tree, coming down to the ground, because that's where the roots are reaching out. So that's the better way. If you have a drip hose, perfect. You can get those, I don't know, maybe $10. They're pretty inexpensive, and just leave that on for a while. That would be the most efficient way. And just rotate those around, leave that for an hour or two, and just go around all your trees, because we don't want to lose our trees. They're in such a delicate situation. Not only do we have to replace them, but it can cost $500–600 or more to remove them. So it's very efficient to try to keep them in good shape.
All right, and we have an empty bed here, and we are going to already start planting for fall. There are some different things that you can start planting now for your fall crops, and we're going to talk about that coming up next.
See ya shortly then, there at the White House.
I bet they also have a gardener
or 2 or 3.
take care of that. Let's go to Lindsay. She's out at the garden live at Four Winds Farm this morning. Lindsay?
Hey, good morning, guys. And actually, this is a certified herb garden, educational herb garden. And Deborah Lee is joining me now. She is kind of in charge of this, I guess you would say. This is yours. So how did you get this recognition, and what does this mean?
The certification is from the Illinois Herb Association, which is part of the Illinois Farm Bureau. And it's a wonderful I think certification to have. We have to have at least 20 of the official Herb of the Year herbs, the International Herb of the Year. And then we keep adding to that all the time. But I have classes out here. I do cooking classes, medicinal herb classes, and I have them in the teaching center on the property at Four Winds Farm. But I like to have people come out, collect herbs, and also do classes on gardening, organic gardening, and especially with herbs. It's herb related, so it's fun. I've had the garden goddesses, I call them, that are the helpers that worked with me this spring, and it's been pretty easy to maintain once we got it going.
And now horseradish was the herb last year,
yes,
and that's taking over.
It is. I have it in a raised bed that's 8 feet by 6 feet, and I hope that would contain it, and it just keeps growing out. I'm constantly, anytime somebody comes over, if they want horseradish, I'm giving them a slip of that. So that's been kind of a new thing to work with. This year, the herb of the year is the rose.
All right, and we have a bed here. Oops, my cord is getting stuck on your plants here. These are dill plants, and these are cilantro plants. And why are they I mean, they look a little dead.
Yeah, they are dead. A lot of people have questions about dill and cilantro, so I thought it'd be fun to talk about that. It's a 2-time bloom, and it comes out usually in the spring and the fall. So I had a lot of dill this year, and I have some that I just sprinkled out the dill plants like I did here with the cilantro, and then I put these in because I think it looks kind of cute on top with the flowers, and the seeds will fall off. And once they start to do that a little bit more in a week or two, then I just come over with the hoe here or maybe a rake and just cover it up just a little bit and then water it really well. And probably a couple of weeks the dill is starting to come up. It's going to be the same thing with the cilantro. I just laid these out. So usually when the cilantro starts to bolt, we call it, and flower and then seed, and I think it did that probably this year around June, and people say, oh no, I don't have any more cilantro. I just let it go ahead and do that. It looked a little shabby, but then I broke it off and laid it around in the garden so those seeds can fall out. And again, those also are going to start coming up pretty soon. So you have these 2 seasons in the summer of your dill and cilantro. They don't like really hot weather.
I know a lot of people who don't like really hot weather.
I'm having trouble with it myself.
Now you have 2 lines here, and you've already planted some beets, and it's July, it's almost August, but it's time to start planting fall crops.
Fall crops, things that have maybe like a 60-day period before they start to harvest. You can harvest them. So that the beets I'm doing, I'm going to put some lettuce in right over here. Lettuce is good to plant next to dill. They're complementary plants, and the dill kind of helps it to grow better. And then also turnips. I'm putting in broccoli and cabbage and some of those things from seed. And they ought to be able to have time before a really hard frost. Those are things that are not too affected by the frost. Kale and collards are another thing that are going to be good to do. So I'm going to plant some collards in also.
All right, and when we come back, when you visit us next time, we're going to talk a little bit about watering. Some more tips for you if you're looking to get your garden looking a little bit better. Is it too late? We'll talk about that coming up.
All right, we will see you shortly. In the meantime, 6:40 is your time. Lindsay Boach is with us once again live.
Yeah, she's out this morning at Four Winds Farm. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. We have a tomato here. If you can see this, it's got a split on it. Is this okay or is it not? Well, for that answer, we're going to turn to Deborah Lee, who's growing these tomatoes here. What do you do when you have a tomato like this?
I picked this one a little bit early because this will happen. I was watering with the drip irrigation hose along the roots, and it just had all the hot weather and the water, and it just grew kind of quickly. And so when this happens, you want to pick them a little bit green. It doesn't hurt to do that anyway. We were looking at this one a bit ago. It doesn't look too pretty, but this is a wonderful, wonderful canning tomato. It's an heirloom tomato and very, very dense. And so when you're using it for salsa or tomato sauce, it doesn't really have to be real gorgeous for a store shelf. But you have to be a little careful with these when they start to split and pick them a bit early, because if you leave them on the vine, it's going to rot. And right now I can set it out probably for a day or so and it'll be okay and it'll ripen up just fine. So it's not really a problem.
Now you're talking about watering. We're in a drought, obviously. How often do you water your plants?
I usually water once a week. That's traditionally what's recommended, and that's scientifically proven and taught by U of I Extension. And a lot of people will be watering once a day. And that's not as effective because it doesn't get a real deep amount of water into the roots, and you want to have your roots stay moist. Another trick is to cover it with some kind of mulch. I usually use some kind of a compost, partially decomposed compost, or sometimes I'll use straw. I have straw in the pathways here, or other kind of mulch. And that is amazing, and the difference in the amount of water that can be retained. But so you water for a couple hours, an hour or two at a time, once a week. Then if you go away on vacation, and otherwise you leave and it's not so good. Now you don't want to dramatically start doing that right away in this kind of heat, because if you've been watering once a day, then you might want to stretch it out 2 days, 3 days, and work up to that. But you're going to save money in the long run, and your plants are going to be much, much better because the roots are going to develop deeper.
Now, are there any plants that no matter how much you water that just didn't make it through this summer?
I had some things in containers, and some 25-gallon containers, and I wanted to do that because this is all an educational garden, and I just wanted to try it. And actually, I just put a little straw on the bottom, and I should have had topsoil and some potting compound, but I watered those once a day. And most of the things that you have in containers, you do need to do that. But otherwise, no, I can't think of anything. Now, when you first put things out, if you do transplants, then you have to baby those along for a while.
Now you mentioned this is an educational garden, which means you probably teach classes.
I teach a lot of classes here, I do. I have a couple of cooking classes going on this week, and we have room for several people in both of them. The one on Tuesday night, tomorrow night, is going to be ratatouille and other things that you can use and make with your vegetables that are growing this time of the year in abundance. And then I have one on Thursday evening where we're going to do herbal vinegar. And people come and they'll come out into the garden, collect herbs, and then they'll make an herbal vinegar and take that home. And then we're going to eat some things and make some things that you can use herbal vinegar for.
All right. Thank you very much. And if you are interested in these classes, we'll talk a little bit more. I'll give you another brief little summary of some of the classes coming up later in the show. But grab a pen, grab a piece of paper so you can write down how to sign up for these classes at the end of the show.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay.
I would need like a college course, I think. I'm so bad at the plant.
And if you're interested in some more cooking classes, there's a medicinal herb class that Deborah Lee will have. It starts in mid-September. It's 9 weeks long. If you're interested in this, you can go ahead and shoot her an email. That's the best way to get a hold of her. It's dlee@adams.net.